So now we're going to move on to another concerted syn addition to an alkene, where we discuss bis hydroxylation or the dihydroxylation of an alkene to give a diol product. So overall, the reaction is going to involve transforming an alkene into a carbon-carbon single bond, where each of the formerly sp2 carbons now bears an alcohol. And this functional group is known as either a diol or a glycol. And the way that we will do this is by first the addition of an oxidizing agent, osmium tetraoxide, and then via some workup step that's usually aqueous. This workup could be many things. Sometimes you'll see it as sodium HSO3, or other times that will be a basic workup. Other times you'll see a carboxylic acid, where you have some acidic aqueous workup, or you'll just see hydroxide, as I've shown in the examples below. So, as I mentioned, this is a concerted syn addition of two oxygen atoms across the alkene, and I'll show you that mechanism below.